Some men earn their names through medals, others through the silence that follows their missions. Jason never cared about rank, reputation, or ribbons. He only cared about the lives that didn't make it home. So when a decorated general looked him in the eye and asked for his team call sign, Jason said two words that turned the entire room cold: Raven 2. Before we continue, to our returning viewers, thank you. Your support is what fuels us to bring these powerful stories to life. And if you're new here, we invite you to subscribe. With your help, we'll continue to share stories that inspire, challenge, and move hearts. And if this story touches you, please leave us a comment. Your words mean more than you know. The room smelled like old coffee and gun oil. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, a thin, nervous sound no one acknowledged. Men in pressed uniforms lined the walls, ribbons bright as city lights, faces carved from stone. No one was talking. Not really. Just waiting for the moment to arrive and hoping quietly it didn't. Jason stood with his sleeves rolled once, the green of his fatigues gone soft at the elbows. He didn't belong to the room, and the room knew it. He looked like a problem that had decided to walk in and sit down, calm, impolite, inevitable. The general across from him had a face that had seen too many wars and not enough reasons. He started the morning looking comfortable in his medals. Now his fingers worried the corner of a folder until the paper curled. "Name," he said, though he already knew. "Jason," Jason answered. "Unit." "Freelance," Jason said, "recently." A tick flickered in the general's jaw. There were people in the room who didn't like the word recently. It implied a past with long shadows. "And your team call?" Jason didn't blink. "Raven 2. Silence fell the way snow falls on a grave, soft and final. Someone in the back swallowed, loud enough to be a mistake. A young officer shifted a notepad and tried to look anywhere but at Jason. The general didn't move at all. He simply went pale, like a man who had opened a door to find the room he'd kept locked on purpose. "Say that again," he said. Jason's eyes were steady. "Raven 2. The general closed his folder. Behind him, a wall clock ticked 4 times and decided not to help. "Everyone out," he said. 4 words, an order, and then the scrape of chairs. The room emptied quickly, leaving only the general, Jason, and a major who hadn't learned yet when to leave. The general looked at Jason, then at the major. "You too." The major hesitated, squared his shoulders as if to argue rank against gravity, and lost. The door shut behind him with a hush that sounded like relief. For a moment, there was only the hum of cheap lights and the slow drag of breath from 2 men who'd seen too much to pretend otherwise. The general leaned on the table with both hands. "That call sign hasn't been spoken out loud in this building for 12 years. Jason said nothing. The general's voice thinned. "Because 12 years ago, Raven 2 never came home." Jason's jaw flexed once, like muscle memory, like a reflex against old pain. "That's not entirely true." "According to every file I've got," the general said, tapping a knuckle on the folder. "The team was KIA in a valley with no name on a map that doesn't exist." Jason's eyes didn't move. "Maps lie." The general stared at him, searching for a word and getting only the shape of it. Finally, he sat. "Start talking." Jason didn't rush. He never did. He took the chair like a man defusing a bomb, carefully, with respect for the damage he might cause by doing it wrong. "We were 6, he said quietly. "Ghost unit. No patches, no cameras, call signs only. Raven 1 through Raven 6, I was 2. The general's eyes flicked to his hands, scarred, knuckles slightly swollen the way they get when a person has spent too long convincing the world to behave. "We were sent to cut out a route," Jason went on. "Not a head, not a branch, a route. A man funding operations in 3 countries through a pipeline no one could see because he'd built it inside of charities and clinics. He hid his money under sick kids and medicine shipments. Say no to him, you looked like a monster. Say yes, you fed a war." The general rubbed his temple. "Code name." Jason's mouth turned at one corner without humor. "People called him the pastor. He didn't preach. He simply collected tithes." "How close did you get?" Jason looked past the general, as if the wall had decided to show him a film only he could see. "We were already inside. 3 months embedded under a logistics umbrella, clearing trucks, changing routes by a mile here, a mile there. We watched the money move like blood through arteries and waited for the heart. And then somebody cut our comms in the middle of a transfer, Jason said. Our satlink went dead. Our tracker codes flipped to red like a Christmas tree, and men who shouldn't have known our names suddenly used them. The general's knuckles whitened. An inside leak. Jason didn't answer. He didn't need to. We ran, he said instead. Raven 5 took a round that didn't miss. Raven 3 carried him until the mountain didn't care. We made a circle of rock and dared the night to take us. It tried. His voice didn't break. It went quieter. In the morning, a man came up the ridge with a radio and a smile. Said he was there to help. Said the good guys had sent him. We were too tired to notice the lie had clean boots. The general's eyes closed for a beat. And your team? Raven 1 made a choice, Jason said. He handed me the plate and told me to disappear. He handed the rest of them something else. Hope. He told them extraction was coming. It never did. The room held that for a moment, then another. They died thinking the cavalry would appear, Jason said. It didn't, but the pastor did. He made sure the world believed we were the ones who'd opened the gate. He broadcast our call signs into the dirt so anybody who dug would find ghosts where men had been. The general sat very still. Why come back now? Why say the words now? Because your man with the clean boots just filed for a pension under a different name, Jason said. Because the pastor's charity just bought a warehouse in a city where your men sleep with their phones on their chests. And because a file you buried is being dug up by people who aren't careful with shovels. The general looked older, not in the face behind it. You have proof. Jason lifted a small drive from his pocket and set it on the table like a coin in an old ritual. Enough to make a room go quiet, not enough to make a judge loud. Yet, the general echoed. The drive sat between them, small and heavy. The general stared at it, then at the door, then back to Jason. What do you need? Jason's answer came like a mechanic's diagnosis, clean, precise, unarguable. A clean team, a black car, a badge that opens doors and a badge that scares people into closing them. No press, no brass, no speeches. You don't owe me a parade, you owe them a truth. The general let out a breath he'd been storing for years. And if I say no? Jason stood slow, not as a threat but as a reality. Then I'll do it the way I did last time, quietly, but when it breaks loud the sound will find you. The general looked at the drive one more time, then took it, tucking it inside the folder like a weapon he didn't want to drop. You'll have what you need by nightfall. Jason nodded once. It wasn't gratitude. It was acknowledgement, the kind men trade when they don't waste thanks on things that should have been done already. He turned to go. Jason, the general said, stopping him at the door. Why Raven 2? Jason looked back, eyes softening just enough to reveal a bruised memory had left behind. Ravens don't sing, he said. They remember. He left the room without sound. By dusk, an unmarked SUV idled behind a disused hangar. A woman with a federal badge and a boxer's posture waited by the hood, coat collar turned up against a wind that tasted like rain. She looked at Jason the way people look at storms, respect and calculation. Name S. Alvarez, she said. You're the legend who doesn't like names. Legend S too loud, Jason replied. Where's the warrant? She patted her pocket. Where it needs to be to get us in, where it needs to not be to get us out. From the back of the SUV, a quiet man in a plain suit emerged. He looked like a teacher who'd lost his class. I'm Patel, he said. Signals. Jason glanced at the laptop strapped open on the seat, the waterfall of code. You follow their money. I follow what money wishes it could hide, Patel said. Your pastor uses charities as clothes. I've got the stitches. Alvarez opened the rear door. We've got a window, warehouse on the river off Pier 12. Paper says medical supplies. Signals say something that doesn't like sunlight. What about the man with the clean boots? Jason asked. Alvarez's jaw tightened. He consults for the charity now. New name, old habits. Jason's hands flexed once. Good. I want him looking at me when he remembers. They rolled out with the last of the daylight, the city taking shape in leftover light. Jason watched the river come closer, dark and indifferent. On the far side of the pier, a warehouse hunched against the water like it had something to hide and no practice hiding it. A security guard smoked by a door he didn't care to guard. A second man checked his phone with the intensity of a surgeon and the attention span of a tourist. Alvarez drove past without looking at them. 2 blocks down, she parked between a dead truck and a dumpster that had given up on pretending. "We walk the rest," she said. "No reason to make a scene before the scene shows up." They slid into the shadows, 3 shapes moving like they had a right to. The wind off the river found every gap in Jason's jacket and asked its old questions. He didn't answer. At the corner of the building, Patel crouched beside a fuse box. 30 seconds, he murmured. Camera loop, door buzz. "Make it 20, Alvarez said. "Make it 10, Jason added. Patel smiled. 5. The camera above the door blinked, decided it had seen enough of nothing and kept seeing nothing. The lock clicked like a coin jar opening. Alvarez eased the door and slipped inside first, Jason behind, Patel a breath later. The hallway smelled like bleach and cardboard and something metallic that didn't belong. On the right, a chain-link pen-held pallet stacked high with boxes stamped with a dove and a cross, and the kind of slogan that empties wallets and quiets questions. Heal the world. Jason brushed a finger across a box seam. Glue, fresh. Footsteps. 2 men laughing about something that required small IQ and large volume. Alvarez became wall, gun low, breath slow. Jason stepped into a pocket of shadow and disappeared the way lamps do when somebody cuts the power. The men rounded the corner. One had a badge on a lanyard, the other had last night still on his shirt. "Pull 2 from A aisle," Lanyard said. "The pastor wants them loaded by." He didn't finish. Jason's hand closed on the lanyard from the darkness, tugged him forward into a quiet sleep with a choke that had learned not to leave marks. Alvarez tapped the second's temple with the butt of her pistol. He folded like a receipt and slid to the floor. Patel dragged them into an empty office like he'd been practicing secrets his whole life. "Fast," Alvarez murmured. "Quiet," Jason said. They moved deeper, the building narrowing around them into a corridor with a door too clean at the end. The kind of door money thinks is a good disguise. Patel looked at the keypad, frowned, then smiled. "Never met a 4-digit code I didn't like," he said, fingers tapping a rhythm. The light flicked green, the door side open. Inside, no charity, no clinic, no warm promises, stainless benches, hard cases lined 3 deep, a humming unit with a red light that meant cold storage, paperwork in neat stacks, purchase orders that didn't list the thing they were actually purchasing. Jason stepped to a case and flipped the latches. Foam gut. Inside, things that make small wars profitable. Custom triggers, unmarked optics, stamped receivers with the serial numbers filed down to smooth metal where honesty should be. Alvarez's jaw clenched. "So the pastor cures one kind of sickness and sells another." "Balance sheet," Patel whispered, angry in a way only quiet men get. "Heals 100, hurts 1,000, calls it even." Jason closed the case without noise. "Get your pictures, get your copies. When he says charity, I want the world to hear cruelty." Patel's camera blinked like a patient heartbeat. Alvarez rifled the paperwork, her badge gleaming in the cold light. "Here," she said, pulling a folder with a stamp from a clerk's office 3 states over. "Clean Boots signed this." Jason took the paper, read the name, and let the letters sit where they belonged, on a list he kept for nights when memory needed company. A thud echoed down the hall, then another, then voices, not laughing now. "Check C block," someone barked. Alarm tripped. Alvarez cut a glance at Jason. "You tripped something." Jason shook his head. "They tripped us." He moved to the door and listened the way old trees listen to wind. 8, he said. 8 what? Patel asked. Footsteps, Jason said. They came fast. Alvarez posted left of the door, Jason right, Patel behind a steel pillar where his courage found cover and didn't ask permission. The corridor filled with boots and poor choices. The first man through met Jason's forearm mid-sentence and lost the second half of the word along with his balance. The second saw Alvarez and reconsidered gravity the hard way against the doorframe. The third remembered his firearm. Jason remembered it first. He caught the wrist, turned it clockwise until it understood English, and taught the man how to sit down fast without a chair. The rest hesitated. People always do when violence arrives without noise. Hands, Alvarez said, voice level. One of them recognized her badge and decided he wanted to keep his lungs. He raised his hands. 3 others followed, the math in their faces finally catching up to reality. Jason looked at the leader, the only one who hadn't moved. Not a guard, not a clerk. The posture gave him away, chin that had learned entitlement, eyes that expected doors to open. "Where's the pastor?" Jason asked. The leader licked his lips. "You think he shows up here?" Jason stepped closer. He just did. A phone buzzed in the man's pocket. Alvarez plucked it out, thumbed the screen, and turned it toward Jason. A message thread, a name saved under a verse reference, a text at 1900 hours, shipment confirmed, Walker's deed shredded, blessings. Jason's eyes darkened. Alvarez looked up. "Walker's." "Old couple on Maple," Jason said. "Different fight, same hands." The leader tried for a smirk. It didn't survive. "You can't stop him. He's got friends in places you don't know exist." Jason smiled without kindness. "He's got one friend he forgot." Alvarez cuffed the ones who needed it. Patel sent files into clouds that didn't believe in heaven. Jason stood very still in the center of the room and let a dozen old seconds wash through him like rain over stone. 12 years of quiet, one night becoming loud. He looked at the clean door, the clean cases, the clean lie, and made a promise no one heard but him. "I'm not the cavalry," he said under his breath. "I'm the receipt." Far away, in an office with a view and a framed charity award, a man known to some as the pastor read a text from a number he trusted and didn't see the blade inside it. And in a small room with humming fluorescent lights, a general set a drive on his desk and rubbed his eyes like a man praying in a language he hadn't used in years. Because somewhere between the mission that failed and the map that lied, a call sign had climbed out of a grave. Raven 2 was back.